Okay, here we go. Today is going to be a powerful show. I know it. I feel it in my bones. We have Rick Shapiro, author of Hope Never Dies.
The Lillian McDermott
So fasten your seatbelt. We're going to learn and grow together. It's time to dance, Rick.
Bridges we burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life
Okay.
and it seems like your best ain't good. If you're in need,
You're not dancing. Oh, my God. Let me see that head bopping.
I'll be right here,
There you go.
right here.
That's a good thing that people can't see us unless we're talking. So you can dance like nobody's watching, Rick.
Right here waiting for
This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening friend. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who are new to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show, the purpose of the show is to provide a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening friend, and my viewing friends will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Today, we have a special show. This is one of those books that comes across your desk, I would say, not enough. That we need to have more books like this. We need to have more stories and more shows like this. And I'm going to reach out to some of the people in this book because they need to tell you their story of hope. Today, we're giving out the book, Hope Never Dies. This is how 20 late-stage and terminal cancer patients beat the odds. So listen up. Fifth caller or texter. Fifth caller or texter, Hope Never Dies at 407-373-5959. If you call, please leave a message. And you text, all you need to text is Hope Never Dies, and I'll know that this is what your intention is. So declare your intention this morning because I'm making it very easy for you guys. Fifth caller or texter. Now, many of us have heard many, many stories of people that have been given you're going to live 2 weeks or 3 weeks, or go home, get your affairs in orders, go home and die. We've heard from them on the Lillian McDermott Radio Show. We've heard from doctors that say, not on my watch. I would never say that. Doctors like Dr. Cornelia, who's going to be on tomorrow, Dr. James Forsythe, and on and on. Those are just two of many. For those of you who have been told that you have cancer and that you have X amount of days to live, fire your doctor. Make sure everybody around you is intentional and has the same desire that you have to live. Well, this is the book, Hope Never Dies, where someone captured these stories. His name is Rick Shapiro, and he interviewed 20, I'm sure more than 20 patients, but these were the highlights of his journey of learning a new truth about the recovery and the determination of the mind. So again, if you've been told you have stage 4 cancer, be sent home to die, think again. There is hope, because hope never dies. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Rick Shapiro is here to do just that. Welcome, Rick, to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
This is an incredible book of stories that are so empowering. And so share a little bit about your background and what led you to write Hope Never Dies.
Sure. By background, I used to be active in practicing law, and also I'm a financial advisor. But back on March 29th, 1996, an event happened that just threw my world. And my father died of cancer.
Yes.
I still remember that day when the doctor came up to me and said, "We look at your dad's situation as terminal." When I heard those words just about 22 years ago, I felt helpless and hopeless, and I had no idea what to do. And I knew nothing about cancer at that time. So it just shook me up. And I started wondering, is there a better way than just the straightforward standard of care? And as we all know, standard of care in conventional medicine is chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery. And I had a situation hit me that shook me up in 2001 when I was told that I should have a biopsy done on my liver. My liver enzymes were escalating rapidly. And I had gone to a life insurance company to increase my life insurance. They took blood, which they normally do. And they did an ultrasound, a CAT scan. They took blood work. They took blood out of me and said, you have really high liver enzymes. We'll give you insurance, but not at the premium rates. Mm-hmm. So I went and I talked to my doctor, and he had concerns. He sent me to a gastroenterologist. And after he did some work and tests, he said, I want to do the biopsy. They were very concerned. I said, let me make a deal with you. Let's wait 30 days. And if I can start moving my numbers down towards the normal range, we'll put off this biopsy. And he says, okay, we'll wait 30 days. So I made radical transformational changes in my nutritional habits, in my diet. And I added a few supplements to the mix as well. In 30 days, I moved my high and scary numbers down towards the normal range. And in 6 months, I was totally normal, no need for the biopsy. And that made me think, are there things we can do for ourselves, nutritionally and otherwise, that can impact our biochemistry and our health? And that was an interesting moment for me.
That is a great story and a great segue for those of you who would like Hope Never Dies, the book. That's a new book that just came out, 407-373-5959. Fifth caller that leave a message or texter, that's 407-373-5959. If you think you're terminal, please consider a new truth. And we're going to continue our conversation with Rick Shapiro, author of Hope Never Dies, when we return worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you. Great story, Rick.
Thank you.
Now, my question for you is, in 2001, after your father passed away, did you start researching, or did you know instinctively that you needed to change your lifestyle?
Well, I knew I needed to change my lifestyle. This was evidence to me that you can bring about changes on your own without going the pharmaceutical route, without going the conventional route, because I proved it to myself. When someone says get a biopsy, those are scary words. That's an indication they think you might have cancer. So with these changes, I transformed my health. And I did a deep dive into research after that.
You did a great job diving. Okay, so what I know about biopsies, or what I know about cancer, and maybe you can correct my thoughts here. What I know about cancer is that cancer is a rogue cell. Cancer is a cell that did not listen to the proper process of life, which a cancer cell eats, sleeps, drinks, poops, procreates, just like the human body. But a cancer cell doesn't die. It just keeps mutating, and then they keep mutating instead of dying like the natural process. And so the body, to protect it, forms an encapsulation of these cells we call a tumor. So the body is encasing this tumor, and then we biopsy it, or the doctor biopsy and releases the beast. I mean, many people that have had biopsies have a backlash afterwards. So have you looked into that in the biopsy, why your body said, no, I'm not going to do the biopsy?
That wasn't the rationale for not doing the biopsy. I just wondered, once you start down that road of doing the biopsy in conventional medicine, you never know where it's going to go. And sometimes doctors can give you therapies that are not required and unnecessary. They might say, gee, we need to try chemo. And maybe you didn't need to do chemo at all. But yes, there's a perception among many that a biopsy alone, when you drag that needle across your tissues, that it can spread cancer. There's certainly that perspective. But cancer alone, as it may spread in your body or metastasize, it can do that as it builds up this strength and it builds up what's called.
Okay, here we go. The music is blocking you, so here we go. We'll get started talking.
Or leave her a voicemail at 407-373-5959. Once again, here's Lillian.
Welcome back to the McDermott Radio Show, where we always learn from one another. Today's teacher is Rick Shapiro, and he is the author of Hope Never Dies. For those of you who, I believe that this book is a great book, and you can, I know it's about late stage cancers, but you can put anything in there. Listening to the stories of determination and how these people made a decision that this isn't going to kill them. And they tried different things, although many of them were in their last breath, that something shifted in them. And so we're going to talk about these stories. But before we start talking about the stories, every single one of these stories that you share in Hope Never Dies, and by the way, fifth caller or texter, 407-373-5959. That's 407-373-5959. That's caller or texter will win a free copy of Hope Never Dies. So here's the deal. I have talked about the mind, body, spirit approach to healing. Many of us want to heal the body, but we neglect the mind, we neglect the spirit. So was there a theme with all the people that you interviewed of their determination, or what was the theme running through all these interviews?
There were several, but you're hitting the nail right on the head. A prevalent commonality with virtually everyone, and everyone who I've met who've had a stage 4 or a terminal prognosis, and I've met hundreds of people, in fact, who have quote unquote beaten the odds, and we can get to that. They all had a strong inner resolve, an inner will to live. Now, let's be honest. When someone's told they have cancer, your mortality flashes before your eyes. You're scared to death. You're anxious. You're stressed. You may go into depression. But it's really important after a few days, a week, a couple of weeks, to say, you know what? I don't have to be a statistic necessarily. There are things I can do, and find that inner strength, because nothing great was ever accomplished. No one ever climbed Mount Everest or accomplished a great goal or objective with a negative attitude, where they might say to themselves, oh, I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if this is going to work at all. But you have to have that inner resolve and that belief. So hope is important, and that mind-body attitude is critical.
Yeah. And, and here's the thing, that many people treat the body. So they go and you hear the words, you've got cancer and you need chemotherapy yesterday. They rush you to chemotherapy and don't give you any time to process. Like you said, not here, right now, not now. I am going to do whatever I can. Lifestyle changes. All the doctors that I've had on my show talk about lifestyle changes. What were some of the things you did, Rick Shapiro, to lower your enzymes?
Well, with respect to me,
yes,
I did two things. I made major nutritional changes. I used to like what I'll call the standard American diet.
Yeah.
Standard American diet is SAD. It's sad.
Sad. Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed in those days my cheeseburgers with bacon. I enjoyed those days, not anymore, those French fries piled high. I enjoyed copious amounts of ice cream. I enjoyed a lot of this junk, if you will. But I went primarily on a plant-based diet. I'm not a vegetarian, but primarily. And I eliminated confectionery junk. I eliminated the great majority of sugar. I used to like my chocolate chip cookies, not so much anymore, soda pop, et cetera, et cetera. And I just got much healthier and cleaned up my nutritional act. On the supplement side, I took 2 or 3 supplements that I researched, and I went to my doctor and I said, in those days, is this going to help me or hurt me? And the doctor said, it will not hurt you, but it might help you. I don't really know. So those are 2 things that I did. Certainly I had a belief that I could make things better. I wasn't going to go into a fatalistic or defeatist attitude. And that's really important for cancer patients, because this is a daunting situation, but we must meet it, not with moderation, in my opinion, but we must push back against this, because cancer is a tough foe, but there are things we can do that can transform our health. And this has been proven time and time again.
Okay. Excellent. I'm so glad that you instinctively, I asked the question, how did you do this? I mean, did you know this instinctively? Because whole food plant-based, back in 2001, we didn't hear about that. Now these are the terminologies that we're hearing. Did someone, like for me, Rick, I was challenged on the show to go raw vegan for a month. My show didn't start out to be this, My show was like how to be a compliant patient, how to listen to the world, how to, how to have conversations and be respectful. That's always been part of what I want to do. But when 3 or 4 days after I started eating raw vegan, not that I don't eat raw vegan now, but I eat a lot of raw vegan foods. It's part of my balance in my life. And about 3 or 4 days later, I thought, I felt good before. I didn't know I could feel better. You don't realize these things, but I had someone challenge me. Did anybody challenge you?
I challenged myself.
Interesting.
I was all over the internet.
You knew it.
Searching for options. I started searching for things that might be out of the box. I found a doctor, quite frankly, in Australia, and I bought this woman's book. She's a gastroenterologist in Australia, and she took a natural approach. I found a book from Europe, and I bought these books, had them sent to me overnight, and I read these books in a virtual nanosecond. I read them overnight, and they made a lot of sense about transforming your body. And just did a deep dive into research. You have to be careful when you do research on the internet, certainly, because there's a lot of junk on the internet. There are a lot of things that, there are even charlatans, people who are pretenders who will try to take advantage of people,
Sure.
who are vulnerable, which is horrible, but there is also good information. And we have to question convention. We have to look at assumptions. We have to look at studies and how they're designed when we get into any therapeutic approach. But for me, I just took a deep dive. I wasn't excited about a biopsy in my liver, and I was able to transform my body and my body
In 1 month.
in a month. And then within a few months, I was in the normal range. The doctors were really surprised. They said, well, keep doing what you're doing. They didn't seem to be interested about the specifics. They just said, well, your numbers are great and the biochemistry looks good.
Wow. And no care for how did you do it. So this is one of the things I want to share. If you're new to the Lillian McDermott radio show, I'm going to say it again. What you hear on this show is a new truth. There was a time that people thought the earth was flat. And there are still people that embrace that philosophy. They're called the Flat Earth Society, and I do a lot of campaigning for them. I don't know why, because I mentioned them, and I would love for someone to come on and share with me what their philosophy is. But somewhere along the way, someone said, hey, wait, the earth is a sphere. And it took a long time for people to come around to it, but they did. And so I want you to embrace a new truth. You might be hearing this for the first time. Others been hearing it for 6.5 years or 6 years, at least 5 years from me. And so I want to encourage you to consider this new truth and do your own research until it makes sense, just like Rick did, just like I did. It's like, what else is out there? If food can make me feel this good, food can make you feel so bad too, depending on what direction you go. So there was another point that you had made that I want to get to later, but for now, I want to move forward. As you decided to write this book, what was your thought process and what brought you to write this book?
Well, I just decided, especially after I was doing research before my 2001 incident. I took a deep dive into research, literally. I found a website called pubmed.gov,
Yes.
pubmed.gov. And literally, that is the National Institute of Health's Library of Medicine. There are literally over 27 million studies on pubmed.gov. And I started looking at that particular website. If you put, hypothetically, the word in there, curcumin cancer. Curcumin is the biologically active agent in something called turmeric. And a lot of people have turmeric in their spice cabinets.
Yeah.
And curcumin is an anti-inflammatory and is very helpful when it comes to disease as well as cancer. So if you put the word curcumin cancer in there, in the search section, you'll come up literally with over 4,000 studies. 4,000. If you put the word in supplementation cancer, you'll come up with over 9,000 studies. I've done this. So there's a ton of things out there. Another thing, in 2017, 600,000 people died of cancer.
Yeah.
If anybody remembers the war in Vietnam, over 10 years in the war in Vietnam, 58,000 people died. 58,000. Every 5 weeks, 58,000 people die of cancer. In 2016, 38,000 people died in car accidents in this country. And every 3 weeks, you have 38,000 people die of cancer. So I said, people need to know that there are things that either integratively or alternatively, they can have a profound effect on one's health and save lives. And I was just driven to help people save lives, extend lives, enhance quality of life, because it's ubiquitous cancer. It's everywhere. And it's really not getting better. We've made such incremental progress, tiny progress compared to cardiovascular disease. And we just need to find a better way, a better paradigm.
Yes, Rick, I'm so glad that you mentioned PubMed. I know that I wrote an article that's called, "Are You Chemotherapy Deficient? Could you be chemotherapy deficient?" So what we've learned about cancer is when we do have cancer, there's a deficiency in the body. What are your deficiencies? No different than a tree that goes into hibernation and naturally wakes up in the spring with all the nutrients, whatever it needs to thrive during that time. And so I ran across an article in PubMed research that stated that the 5-year survival rate of chemotherapy is 2.1%. And that's 2.1%. That's the survival rate of chemotherapy, 5-year survival rate. I have Dr. James Forsythe. I don't know if you're familiar with him. I know that you researched other doctors as well. Dr. James Forsythe treats only stage 4 cancers, and his survival rate is 70%. Now, he does this with a homeopathic dose. I don't know about you, but all the how you feel, but for me, all the trillions of dollars that we've donated, all this information that of research, and all that 2.1%, and for some reason that is acceptable to us, I don't think so. So let's talk about some of these people. Oh, by the way, it's 2.3% in Australia. I don't know but 2.1%, that's in PubMed. So check it out. Make this your truth. It's not acceptable to me. It should not be acceptable to you. Try something different, consider it. So let's talk about some of these patients that you have encountered. How many patients did you interview to get your 20?
I interviewed about 25, 26, because a few people decided they did not want to be in the book afterwards, quite frankly. But I just want to go back to something you just said. I'm very well aware of that meta study with the Australian Cancer Registry in the U.S. And the so-called benefit out of this chemotherapy. And it is a very interesting study. And also, I have met Dr. Forsythe, so I'm well aware of it.
Isn't he wonderful?
Yeah. Yes. So anyway, I'm sorry. The next question was, I apologize.
Well, you were you were going to mention something about the study, the 2.1%. Did you want to add anything to that?
It's a very, very interesting study of thousands of people. It's a meta study. Meta meaning it looked at lots and lots of studies and came up with these particular conclusions.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Very interesting.
So I want to let all of you know that I've had several attorneys, people that they've got JD or Esquire behind their name, and they are great researchers. Let me tell you, if they make it through law school, they can research pretty much just about anything. And so Rick Shapiro has that background as well. I want to encourage you to reach out at 407-373-5959 if you'd like a copy of Hope Never Dies. As you can see, I've got all these markers, Rick, in my book. Great stories of hope. And we're going to continue our conversation with Rick Shapiro when we return worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you. That is something that has given me power, the 2.1% of chemotherapy. Until I saw it, I had heard this statistic, but it did not become my truth until I read it.
Yeah.
Did that happen to you, where you had heard it from somebody else, but you did not, it didn't become part of your belief system until you read it?
It wasn't verified. It wasn't, you didn't know, because we hear lots of things.
Mm-hmm. We hear things
all the time. Regarding chemotherapy, actually, I'm not 100% against it. I think there's a place for it in some
Sure. Sure.
There's also what I call a modified chemotherapy. There's a much better way to do chemo than it's done conventionally. Mm-hmm. And we can talk about that if you like.
Yeah, I was reading about that. It's the chronomodulated. Chronomodulated. I was trying to read my handwriting. The chronomodulated chemo. I had never heard of chronomodulated. I had heard about Dr. Forsythe's homeopathic where he takes 10% of chemotherapy. When we come back, I will, there's a couple of things that I normally say, which one of them is if you've survived chemotherapy, if you're not allergic to chemotherapy, because that's the first thing that the first doctor that ever told me was Dr. James Forsythe. It's a long story of how I met Dr. James Forsythe, but the whole experience was divine. It was divine intervention. It's what led me to A New Truth and starting the foundation, the McDermott Holistic Healing Foundation, which what we want to do, it's in its infancy, and I'm looking for my warriors to join me. But what we're going to do is we're a resource center where you can learn about the different therapies that you can opt for. But if you need intervention, if you want to try a more holistic approach that will not destroy your body, or what Diane, what her last name, Diane starts with a K. Diane Klenke. Yeah, Diane Klenke, she did chemotherapy. She did that chromo-modulated therapy, but she also took the vitamins and supplements during that time. And I read in hers that she said that her doctor said not to take vitamins during that time. Why is this misperception or misconception continues to grow after all these years of proving that chemotherapy doesn't work as well as other options or working with other modalities? Why is it that this whole, chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery are the only way? What has been in your research, your opinion?
Well, there's two reasons. One is conventional doctors are not aware of or ignorant about other therapies beyond the strict standard of care. Number one, the National Academy of Science, in fact, in a 2010 study, said that only 27% of all the medical schools in this country offer any kind of nutritional class that makes any sense. The other 73%, just about 3/4, don't offer anything. So they have ignorance about these things. Number two, it's related to the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. Because think about it, when you go to the doctor, just for anything, a virus, a bacterial infection, we all go and say, hey, doc, what can you give us to make this go away? So we're looking for a pill or some kind of a drug. They will not prescribe that drug. Doctors will not prescribe that drug unless it's gone through a phase 3, double-blind, randomized, large, placebo-controlled FDA study. To do that, you have to go through what's called the Petri dish in the cancer world. They look at cancer cells in the Petri dish. They do a phase 1 study between 20 and 80 people. Then they have a phase 2 study of several hundred people, and a phase 3 might be 800 to 3,000 people. And it costs, according to Tufts University, approximately $2.5 billion with a B. And that's a 2014 study, Tufts University. So no one's going to spend $1 billion or $2.5 billion unless you can get a patent to protect that drug for 20 years. Think about television today. When you watch TV, how often do we see drug commercials on TV today?
Yeah.
All the time. You didn't see that 20 years ago.
Great point. Okay, so I'm going to talk about my social media and then I'll reintroduce you, okay?
You want me to repeat that?
If you like.
You can text Lillian.
If you like, let's see where we go. I do want to talk about some of the...
5959. Once again, here's Lillian.
And welcome back to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show, where you can hear us worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. I'm your host, Lillian McDermott, and it is my goal that we learn from everyone you meet. Go through life with that childlike wonder that doesn't have any judgment attached to it. And today's teacher is Rick Shapiro. He is the author of Hope Never Dies, a great book that highlights 20 late-stage and terminal cancer patients that beat the odds. Do you believe your doctor when they tell you you have 3 minutes to live, 3 days to live, 3 hours to whatever they're telling you? Unless they have a crystal ball and you see it too, don't believe it. Fire them. You need to align yourself with people who will give you hope. Everyone. And if anybody says anything different, get rid of them. Get rid of them. Just align yourself with that intention and make sure that you reach out to people that also believe that you can beat this. Many of the stories of the book, someone believed they could survive, whether it was them or their doctor. Someone believed that that was a possibility. If you are not feeling hopeful right now, this is a great book. Be the fifth caller or texter, 407-373-5959. This is where we take 100% responsibility. The Lillian McDermott radio show didn't start like this. It was, this is the cards you were dealt. You're a victim of your DNA. That's what I was told. That's what I believed. Not anymore. And I hope this will become your truth too when you research it. I always say, don't believe what you hear here. Just research it. Use it and consider it. Then research it and make it your own if you believe what you're reading. So there are some questions that we're going to talk about today about how to empower yourself, especially with a diagnosis. But for now, please know that at whenyouneedafriend.com, I want you to go there, become a subscriber. While you're there, check out my social media. Like me on my social media. Check out our YouTube. By the way, Rick and I have been having conversations on, but we also have conversations off the air. We can't cover everything in an hour. So I want to encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube channel as well. Go to whenyouneedafriend.com, subscribe there, and also subscribe to YouTube. Like me everywhere. Share it with your friends. And while you're there, make sure that you go to my sponsorship page. Because of my sponsors, this show is on the air. When you go on and check out, please check out my sponsors and check out how you can support them the way they're supporting the show. And last but not least, 407-373-5959. Call me, text me, leave a message, and let me know that you want this book or a subject that you would like for us to talk on the air. Today, we have Rick Shapiro on the show. Love the book, Hope Never Dies. You can own a copy, fifth caller or texter, 407-373-5959. Boy, Rick, thank you so much for waking up early to be on the Lillian McDermott radio show. I really appreciate you.
My pleasure. Great to be here again.
Okay, so as we move forward, let's talk about some of the patients. Two that stood out for me was Janet, which I already asked Ashley to reach out to see if we can find Janet, because not only did she have stage 4 metastasize into the body, she had pancreatic cancer, lung cancer, stomach cancer, and lymphatic cancer, and she is still alive. That was in 1995, sent home to die. Tell us about Janet and her story.
Janet's a remarkable person. Janet actually lives in Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. In 1995, when she was 45 years old, she was given 3 to 6 weeks to live. Not months, weeks to live. She had metastatic lung cancer to both lungs, the pancreas, the stomach, the liver, and the lymphatic system, as you said. And she didn't know what to do. She did have surgery for the stomach mass, but that was just palliative and just was going to give her a tiny bit of time. She did elect to go on 1 dose of chemotherapy. And after she went on the 1 dose of chemotherapy, she went from 114 pounds down to 72 pounds.
Yeah, and she's 5'6". At 5'6".
You're correct. In 3 weeks' time, she lost that kind of weight. And she said, in fact, quote unquote, she said, "I looked like a concentration camp survivor."
Yeah.
Those were her words. She gave away all of her clothing. They didn't fit. She went into hospice care. She was in a hospice for well over a year.
Yeah.
Her doctor said, "Why don't you try something different? Why don't you try something alternative?" And she said, "I can't do that. That's for hippies." That was her perspective. And Janet was a former nurse, and she trained nurses. She was trained conventionally. So she said, you know what? She reluctantly had her sister call a macrobiotic counselor in the Cleveland area who offered macrobiotic nutritional diet. And she went on this, and she was very fortunate to have 8 wonderful people, close friends, who made her 3 meals a day, every day, and nursed her over the course of over a year back to health. It was startling what this did to her. Her doctors were amazed. She went in front of what's called a tumor board. And a tumor board is a panel of people integrate conventional oncologists, social workers, oncology nurses, other doctors, and social workers. And they told her story. She told her story, and her doctor told her story to everyone. And they practically couldn't believe that this was the same person. Anyway, she had a remarkable recovery. And she also said that, I thank God my doctor was open-minded and encouraged me to explore macrobiotics. She said, we eat like pigs in America. She also said, never give up, never give up. Those were her closing words in her chapter. Just a remarkable story and a wonderful woman.
Yeah. I think I read it in the book that she said that many didn't believe that was her same results. And that fortunately when she was a child, she had fractured her ribs, and the same ribs were there in the x-rays. And that's what convinced some of the doctors. Many of them kind of dismissed it as a miracle, spontaneous miracle, not what she did, but that something they were able to put into logic that it was a miracle versus look at what she did to turn things around. It's easier to just give up and die. And many people, that's what happens. They give up and they die. But this woman, she said, I mean, pancreatic cancer. You don't hear about anybody surviving pancreatic cancer.
Yes, well, she was lung cancer, but that's true with the metastasized.
Metastasized, yes.
Yes, but you're exactly right about the rib, with the rib fracture from many years before, and the rib fracture showed up on the scan, afterwards, and it proved that it was the same person. And one of the doctors, in fact, said that, well, it must have been that one chemotherapy cycle.
That's right. I read that too.
And the other doctor said, no, that makes no sense, because when we give chemo to someone with this kind of diagnosis, it never works anyway. He admittedly said it never works anyway.
Yeah.
So exactly right. Great insight on your part about what she did, which brought her to healing and health.
Yeah. And I want to reach out to her. The show's going to reach out to her because she has now completely changed her life. And she has, and I want to add to most every single person that I read was they all had an emotional component. She had gone through divorce. She was raised by alcoholic father who was very abusive. And I think he died of pancreatic cancer. Maybe I have some of the stories incorrect, but for I remember reading that she stood out to me that she endured some abuse from her father. And so all of this, and we've had Dr. Mona Lisa Scholes on the show that talks about how whenever we experience trauma, it gets recorded into our white blood cell.
There's a lot of cancer patients that have had abuse in their background, alcoholic situations, violent upbringings,
divorce,
heavy divorces, and that trauma can really impact our immune system. It can impact our internal health without a doubt. And cancer in that regard is not something that just happens in a week, a month, a year. Some people feel cancer is something that starts 20, 25 years ago, 5 to 10 years ago. But these events in life, these traumas, if you will, can have an impact without a doubt on our health and our well-being.
Absolutely. And it's so important because we want to treat the body, we want to treat the symptom. And this is what I was talking to you about, the book by Dr. Carlos Garcia that helped me see a different way. I need to get Carlos Garcia on the show again, but he wrote a book called Cancer is a Symptom. And in this book, you read the book, the research of Dr. Reike Hammer. I might be pronouncing it Ryke Hammer, Hamer. He's a German oncologist, and he was able to scan with an MRI every cancer patient, get their background history, and was able to identify an emotional component with every single one. And everyone that had pancreatic cancer had the same. Everybody that had breast cancer or a sexual organ cancer had the same kind of like trauma in their life. You know, people have trauma all the time. How they deal with that trauma is very crucial. And so for those of you who are listening today and would like a copy of Hope Never Dies, be the fifth caller or texter, 407-373-5959. You are in control. and don't let anyone take away your power. And we're going to continue our conversation with Rick Shapiro when we return worldwide at whenyounneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you. This fires me up, Rick. I love your book.
Great. It's great. And and these are real people. These are real people.
How did you find them? How did you pick them?
I've been, in the last 7 years, I've been to 23 cancer conferences nationwide. In fact, I've been to one in Florida 8 out of the last 9 years, over in West Palm Beach. I'll be there in March.
I would love to meet you out down there. When is it that you're going to be going down there?
I will be there. I fly in on February 28th, I think, and I leave on the 5th.
March 5th?
Yeah, I'll be there. Yeah, in fact, I'm speaking on March 3rd at the conference. But yeah, I'll be in West Palm that whole time, pretty much that whole time. And
I will be at Veg Fest March 3rd. So I hope all my listeners, viewers, March 3rd, I will also be at Veg Fest in Jacksonville. And if for those of you who live in the West Palm area or want to go listen and go to the conference, what's the conference called?
It's the Annie Appleseed Project.
That's right. I was going to ask you about Annie Appleseed. I'd love to get involved with them too.
It's really a fine group. It's a wonderful group. And I've been to many conferences across the country, just a great group. Full disclosure, I'm on the board of directors as well, but they do a great job. They've saved so many lives.
Now,
the doctors that come there.
Very good. And so did you, because of this work that you were doing for the last 7 years, I mean, this is a lot. This is a lot of expense to do. Who was it? Yesterday? No, it was several years ago, several days ago. I interviewed Dr. David Friedman, and he took 7 years. The book is called Food Sanity, and we did an interview with that one. 7 years. That's a long time. Did you ever want to give up?
No, never. Not at all. No, this has become a passion of mine. And people need to know. People need to know. So I will be doing this for many, many, many years, hopefully decades into the future. Lives need to be saved. People need to become aware of these therapies and treatments that are evidence-based. Actually, they're evidence-based. We talked about PubMed.gov. They can save lives.
You're absolutely right. Evidence-based, but we follow opinion, public opinion, because here's the thing. People that want to try a holistic approach get bullied by people that have public opinion, not evidence data, evidence-based information. And then we just, because we have this need to be accepted and follow along with the group like sheep to slaughter, yep. we choose to do whatever they tell us to do.
Yes, we're afraid to question convention. And when somebody says on Thursday, we need to start chemo on Monday, the peer pressure from friends and family is overwhelming. And, you see this person with a stethoscope around their neck and the white coat, and we don't question assumptions. We don't question things. We assume that their way is the best way in the world. Well, guess what? There are lots of other ways. And there's a lot to learn from people who are still alive and thriving when they were told they should not be here anymore based on conventional medicine. So there's much more.
I absolutely love you, Rick Shapiro. I love what you're doing. Okay.
You can text Lillian McDermott or leave her a voice.
I do want to talk about Diane.
5959. Once again, here's Lillian.
Welcome back to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show, where I am hoping today we will make a difference. This conversation, I told you at the beginning that some of you will turn it off. I know some of you have chosen chemotherapy and you have survived it and you're thriving and you believe that this is the best thing. It was for you. The good news is you were not allergic to chemotherapy. There is a test that you can take that will let the doctors know, like Dr. James Forsythe, he says, you have this DNA test and I know the roadmap. I know what you're deficient. I know what drugs work best for you. And there's no question, no doubt. Demand that from your doctor. And if he doesn't know what that is, go to the next one until you find the answer that you're needing. Rick Shapiro is the author of Hope Never Dies. Be the fifth caller or texter. Make sure when you call, leave a message. And if you text, just write Hope Never Dies. That's all you need to do, or HND. And I'll know that if you be the fifth caller or texter, I'll figure it out at the end of the show. and you will win a copy of this book, 407-373-5959. So I mentioned to you that I wanted to talk about Diane. And the reason why I wanted to talk about Diane Klenke is because she chose the route of chemotherapy. She had the right markers. I'm not against chemo. I am for figuring out what your body needs, what it's deficient, but she did something different when she had chemo. She had supplements along with what she was doing, which most doctors say don't do vitamins when you're doing chemotherapy. So what are some of the things that stick out about Diane, Rick? Because again, I guess the pancreatic cancer, we hear nobody survives pancreatic cancer. Let's talk about Diane Klenke.
Sure. And we've got two people in the book with pancreatic cancer.
Exactly.
Diane Klenke. Diane was told in 2004, which is now about 14 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
that she had pancreatic cancer. She was told that she had, quote unquote, tops 3 months to live by an oncology group up in Wisconsin. She went for a second opinion with a major cancer center in the Midwest, and they also confirmed that diagnosis and prognosis, that she only had a few months at best to live. Through a friend of a friend, she found a medical group, an integrative medical group in Chicago known as Keith Block's Integrative Cancer Center. And Keith is an MD, and he has a staff on hand of oncologists and other doctors and practitioners. And Keith felt that he could alter the path of this cancer. He didn't give her guarantees, but that he could make a transformational difference. So he had her get involved in a multifaceted, multi-therapeutic approach, which did include chemotherapy. Now, a certain kind of chemotherapy, chronomodulated chemotherapy. The word chrono is related to the word chronology, related to the word timing. And the chemotherapy was given at certain times of day when cancer cells were most active. When cancer cells are most active, they are most vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
So you could get on his protocol chemo when you're in the produce section of your local supermarket, literally. In addition to the chronomodulated chemotherapy, she also was put on a major nutritional protocol, an oncological nutritional protocol that changed her biochemistry. Food she could eat, food she couldn't eat. Also, evidence-based supplementation, keyword evidence-based. Certain types of vitamins, extracts, and other types of botanicals and herbs that could support the immune system and cytotoxically attack the cancer as well. Additionally, psychobehavioral practices, in other words, mind-body types of things as well. So, and exercise in addition. And people, in fact, on the chronomodulated approach are encouraged to exercise during the chemo, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
So she was put on nutritional, supplementation, mind, body, exercise, and chronomodulated chemo.
Well, I want to add something here. I at the beginning, when we were talking about Janet, I had mentioned that she grew up with an alcoholic father. Maybe this was the story I was thinking about. She grew up with an alcoholic father, and her father died of pancreatic cancer, and he was very abusive, and she basically became the fighter, the defender of her family. And so I just wanted to make that correction as I was looking down at the book. I just realized, this is the one I was talking about, because I wanted to really focus on also pancreatic cancer. Steve Jobs had pancreatic cancer, and he tried holistic, but he didn't do it 100%. But there's a lot of people that when you try a more holistic approach or a different kind of approach, you get bullied by public opinion. And we were talking about that off the air. Why don't you share a little bit about what we discussed so that, people can be brought into our fold, or they can listen to us at YouTube. So.
Yeah, well, for example, in conventional medicine, doctors only go down the FDA avenue, if you will. They only have certain knowledge about certain things in the cancer world, chemo, radiation, and surgery, and they will not prescribe something unless it's approved by a phase 3 large randomized study, placebo-controlled, and what's called double-blind. It takes literally 10 to 15 years to complete these studies, and according to Tufts University, 2014 study of drug approval, you can look it up, $2.5 billion to do these studies. But why will somebody spend $2.5 billion to do a study, and who can afford that kind of obscene expense? Well, the large pharmaceutical companies, because they can get a 20-year patent.
Yeah.
They get a return on investment. So if you come forward with something, if you could put in a pill, evidence-based supplementation, nutritional oncology, exercise, mind-body approaches, and other things that work, that particular pill will be worth $50 billion. In other words, these things cannot go through an FDA study because they're not protected by patents. No one will spend $1 billion or $2.5 billion. It won't happen. So there is proof, though. There's evidence. There's what's called epidemiological proof, observational proof, case studies, case reports, clinical evidence, the kind of which you mentioned before with Dr. Forsythe. There's lots of proof that lots of these things can have a major impact on fighting cancer, eradicating cancer, controlling cancer. It's all there. It's all there.
So that's very true. And also another thing that we talked about was, you know, we are so afraid to question the white coat. And we have to understand that the people wearing the white coat are just as diseased as you are. And we have to question the fact, if they cannot help themselves, how are they going to help you? It is so important that we look at who we are going to. Do they model what you want to achieve? It's one of the things that I would want you to look at when you're going to a doctor. Do they model that picture of health that you want? Because you want to be surrounded by that like-mindedness that's going to promote that health and good and well-being. And so with Diane, go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, well, regarding Diane, I wanted to mention a couple of other things. First of all, she said, you must make your body inhospitable to cancer. Make it hospitable to cancer. And Dr. Block also said, don't ever consider yourself totally cured. You must stay with the program because cancer can come back years later. You must change your life. In fact, in 2006, Diane was interviewed by Sanjay Gupta of CNN.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you this, she's not just one outlier out there. I know numbers of people with pancreatic cancer who got involved with a multi-interventional approach with sophisticated doctors based on objective criteria. Objective criteria means blood work, tissue samples, things of that nature, and have had fantastic transformations. So, you know, this is really important. One other thing you mentioned about Stephen Jobs.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Just because he said, well, he tried holistic or alternative.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean anything. There's 1,000 different avenues you can take with respect to integrative alternative medicine.
Yes.
Some are very effective. Some of them are not as effective.
And you've got to do the work, Rick. You've got to do the emotional component of the work. You can't just treat the symptom because it's a mind, body, spirit. It all works together. Rick, I know that we're almost to the end, and I know this is a wonderful book. I want to encourage you, 407-373-5959. Last bit of, give us your wisdom. What's your takeaway from this book? What did you get out of it?
A couple things. One, do not ever assume that you are a statistic. When somebody says you've got 3 weeks to live, 3 months to live, 6 months to live, you are not a statistic. That's a number out of huge population bases. And what you choose to do when you're given this dire or tough diagnosis can transform your body and impact your health big time. And secondly, breathe. Don't forget to breathe when you get this diagnosis, and breathe again and breathe again, because people get into a panic. People feel peer pressure, and you have to just go with it. And finally,
Rick, we maybe need to have you back. I love this conversation. Remember to call. Thank you so much for being on the show today. And to you, my listening friends, it's time to try something different and consider looking into alternative ways to heal mind, body, spirit. This is Lillian McDermott wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Whoa. Okay. Now we can continue our conversation. I have, hold on. Thank you, Rick. I really loved having this conversation with you. I love your book. I will make sure that everybody that comes to this is going to be in the bathroom, of my guest bathroom, so people can pick it up. You know, that's where I put all my little, like, cancer as a symptom is in there. You know, we all have cancer, and we need to know that the body, for the most part, will heal itself if we give the body what it needs. So I know you have in here 83 critical questions before hiring a doctor. Brilliant. We don't have time for 83 questions. What are your top 3?
Boy, How about if I give you my top 50? No, I'm just kidding. You need to, number one, you need to ask the doctor if he or she is an expert in this particular area of cancer. You don't want to be a guinea pig. Are they an expert? Do they know what they're doing? Number two, are they open to integrative or complementary approaches by other specialists? Are they open-minded? And will they consider other things inclusive with their conventional approach? That's critical. And you need to really feel that this doctor will really, really fight for you. You don't want to be treated as, oh, this is Susie or Joe, the pancreatic cancer patient. No, this is Susie or Joe who happens to have cancer, is not defined by his or her cancer, and you need to know that they will fight for you and find every possible therapeutic avenue that they can to get you the results you want. And are their goals to eradicate the cancer, control it, or is it just palliative? Because palliative means that they think that you're going to die in the relatively near future, and they're just making you comfortable. Well, guess what? The stories in this book, and I have met literally, factually, hundreds of people at these cancer conferences and through my work who were told by major cancer centers in this country, it's time to get your affairs in order. There's nothing more we can do. We can arrange hospice, et cetera, et cetera. And guess what? Hundreds of people have defied the odds and beat the odds because they found other medical therapeutic approaches that may not fit just neatly into this standard of care box. So integrate sophisticated integrative approaches with sophisticated doctors and practitioners, and good alternative approaches, excellent alternative approaches, can change your health and change your life. And be open to it and do your homework.
I love it. I had Dr. Lorraine Day on the show. This was back in 2013. I wasn't quite open to the holistic approach. I don't know when it clicked for you, but for me, it took a process of hearing. And I remember the first time Dr. Lorraine Day, when I was doing research, I was actually doing research on water. I was trying to figure out what's the best water, because this is when I first started my journey of food and food as medicine. And I don't know if you know this, but my registered service mark is you can take a pill or you can take responsibility. It's not that I'm against pills, is I'm for doing everything we possibly can to live the life that we want to live, the health that we want to achieve. So I was doing research on water, and I spoke to this doctor who was an oncologist. There was this water cure. You drink water and your cancer goes away. And Dr. Lorraine Day was someone I was going to be interviewing, and she was focused on water too. And so I actually had the opportunity to talk to this oncologist. And I said, I would love to talk about water because that's one of the things she focuses on. And, what kind of water? And she said, oh, Dr. Lorraine Day? I said, yes. And she said, well, she's irresponsible. I lost one of my patients because of her. And at the time, I didn't have the data. I did not have the information I have today. If I were to be in front of her today, I would have said, well, how many people have you lost due to conventional chemotherapy, radiation? And I know that people do believe that, in chemotherapy, and they feel that I survived that, and therefore I'm going to stick with that. And they do walks and they wear pink ribbons and tutus and all that. And that's fine. And I understand that, but there's so much more that don't survive, so much more. So when I had Dr. Lorraine Day on the show, the first time I was a little resistant because I had that seed planted in my head. She lost the patient of mine.
Yeah. I firmly believe that if people would be open to an integrative approach, evidence-based integrative approach, and in some cases an alternative approach, that thousands and thousands and thousands of lives could be saved, extended with a quality of life. Without a doubt, in my opinion. I used to have a little bit of a cynical attitude as well. Mm-hmm. I went to the first conference I went to. I went with open-minded skepticism, which is kind of an oxymoron. Open-minded.
No, I think that's great. Open, because if you don't know what you stand for, you can fall for just about anything. So it's always good to do the research. Just because I'm saying something doesn't mean it's true. It's my truth, but maybe not real.
Right. Well, but after, in my experience, obviously, in getting to know many of the most renowned doctors and cancer specialists in the integrative world internationally, and going to 23 cancer conferences and talking to hundreds of people and investigating thousands of studies, literally, I have come to conclusions that without a doubt, these kinds of approaches can save lives. And these people are 20 years ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
20 years ahead of the curve. There are doctors who were made fun of and ridiculed, and 20 years later, they're vindicated and win Nobel Prizes.
Yeah. And some of them lose their license. I mean, right now, one of the things that I'm looking at, and I don't know, and maybe this could be another show if you feel comfortable with it, vaccines. I don't know if you've seen the documentary Vax. I don't know if you've looked at the data for that with what's happening with the CDC and the corruption and the altering the results of vaccinations. But when I first started looking into that, boy, was I surprised that I thought that the documentary was about anti-vaccination, but the fact was that they were not against vaccinations. They just want vaccines to be safe and to be tested as safe. And Dr. Andrew Wakefield, a brilliant gastroenterologist, fifth generation of doctors, like the royalty in England, got stripped along with another doctor of his for malpractice because he suggested that they should look into the data that he had. And so a lot of doctors are afraid to go forward because, with me, I've always wanted to have a medical, I always was fascinated with the medical side, but I'm glad that I'm not a doctor because what are they going to strip away? My certified life coach certification, what are they going to do for me? So I have nothing to lose, but many doctors do. So they stay in that box. I'm sure you've encountered that many times.
It's very true. There's a great fear that they'll be ridiculed and they could lose their license, and they don't speak out about what they truly believe.
Yeah, it's sad. It's sad, but we just need to empower ourselves. And Rick, I'm really grateful for your time today. And I am looking forward to our next conversation. Maybe we'll meet for people who would like to go see Rick, how they can find, how can they find where you'll be, and what is the website for that?
The conference is in West Palm Beach, and it's at a hotel near the airport. And I believe, I'm going from memory, I think it's the Annie as an ANNIE, appleseedproject.org, annieappleseedproject.org. And I believe that's where you can get information about the conference, which is March 1st through March 3rd.
Very good. Very good. And that's hopeneverddies.com. So I hope that you will continue your research and be curious about it. Just consider it. That's all I ask. And you choose what you want. I'm not trying to convince you one way or another. This is what I've come to in my research. And Rick, I'm very glad that you were able to share your research of 7+ years now. Well, 7 years to do the book, but leading up to that book, there was a lot of evidence for you that made you consider a new truth. So thank you so much for having the courage to do so.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure.
And to you, my viewing friends, thank you for watching today, and I look forward to our next conversation.